Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we will be doing something a little bit different. This video is a collaboration between myself and my good friend PvPisistratus as we attempt to discover what was the best team in the recently departed Holiday Cup. To determine the best team, we will use the metric of lowest PvPoke threat score, then run tests on that team to determine optimal order. I'll let Pisistratus take it from here, and if you enjoy this type of video, a link to his channel will be in the description.
So today we're going to be looking at the lowest threat score in the Holiday Cup. And so we should start out with what an explanation of the threat score is. So a threat score is basically a PvPoke measure of how well a particular team covers the meta, in this case the Holiday Cup. Lower means you have less threats, which is good. Higher means more threats, which is bad. As you can see here, this is a histogram of all of the threat scores in the Holiday Cup, and we're going to be looking specifically at that lowest threat score. Now this is only the top 60 mons and teams composed of those. You might be wondering, why only the top 60? Well, as you get further in the rankings, the number of teams increases, and additionally there's kind of a limiting return on that. You can see that as we add more Pokemon into this, that is going more towards the right, we get higher threat scores generally overall. That's not to say that it's impossible. For instance, at 47, Chestnut has quite a few really low threat scores, but generally speaking, we're going to get diminishing returns on this. And so that is why we're only using the top 60. Now we can also look at cores. So cores are essentially two Pokemon that, depending on that third Pokemon, have a variety of different threat scores. And so I've sorted these by their median. I want to pay particular attention to that best threat score over there on the left, the Altaria Magnezone. And then we're going to also be looking at 6th, the Altaria Vigoroth, and 26th, the Vigoroth Magnezone cores to round out the rest of that team. And there we go. There is our team. Magnezone, Vigoroth, Altaria. Now note that this is not including which Pokemon is in the lead. The threat score is lead independent, so that's what we're going to be investigating next. And to help out with that, I've asked HomeSliceHenry to narrate some battles.
And now we'll take a look at the battles featuring the Altaria lead, and for the first set of battles here, in battle number 1, this battle is decided at the minute and 26-second mark. So it's been an Altaria mirror match where the opponent committed a shield and Pisistratus did not. Pisistratus comes in to farm down with his Magnezone, but upon realizing the Altaria is reaching a Sky Attack, actually decides to throw a mirror shot right before the opponent gets to their Sky Attack. And this ends up being crucial because that allows him to preserve quite a lot of health on his Magnezone, and in addition neutralizes a bunch of energy from the opponent, which then allows him to go into the end game with an energy lead, which he is able to use to get the win. And the next match is decided at around the 4-minute mark. Unfortunately, it's just a misclick, which does happen from time to time in battles. Like, we've all been there, we've all made mistakes. I know I've made some terrible mistakes in battling. So in this particular match, he's going in after he has safe swapped into his Vigoroth, and the Vigoroth was met by a Marowak. He's looking to come in with his Altaria, but unfortunately he accidentally misclicks the Magnezone and then has to quick swap into Altaria, which then resets his switch clock, so that after the Altaria dies and Wigglytuff comes back in, he is unfortunately unable to switch out. So that particular instance, it was a hard counter lead situation, but unfortunately that slight misclick did end up costing him the game there. In match number 3, Pisistratus does do everything correctly, but unfortunately some losses can be chalked up to team composition. So in this particular instance, the opponent has a back line that is very hostile to Vigoroth, so with Vigoroth being one of his remaining 2 Pokemon left alive, unfortunately it doesn't really have any play versus the Alolan Marowak or versus the Haunter. So in this particular situation, there's not a particular moment to bring out where there was a certain play, but unfortunately it just came down to team composition. Game number 4 is decided at the 11-minute and 30-second mark. It's where he actually decides to double commit his second shield, so he expends both shields to make sure that his Magnezone is able to win switch advantage. This is huge because he had a positive matchup up front, and by doing so he is able to keep switch advantage and that way he can help keep proper alignment, which allows him to take the match. And the final match is decided at the 13-minute and 45-second mark. In this particular match, he does have an Altaria mirror match, and after landing his sky attack, he actually decides to switch into his Vigoroth to try and catch a sky attack, and this actually ends up losing him the game, unfortunately, because the opponent has very hard counters for his two Pokemon, but if he was able to stay in and win switch in the Altaria mirror match, then he could have aligned his Pokemon accordingly, so they would have had good matches, but since he gave up switch advantage, unfortunately from there, it was hard counter city, and unfortunately he was unable to come back from it. Now we're hopping into the set of 5 battles that was done with Vigoroth in the lead. And in the first battle, this match is decided at the minute and 50-second mark. At this particular time, the opponent has a full health Mantine and 1 shield, whereas Pisistratus has a full health Altaria and 1 shield, as well as a Magnezone in back with most of its health. The Mantine goes for a charge move, and Pisistratus decides not to shield, realizing that his win condition is with the Magnezone, and the opponent actually ends up baiting with a Bubble Beam so that no shield ends up securing Pisistratus the win and dooms the opponent to an unfortunate loss. In match 2, the most pivotal moment is after he has safe swapped into his Altaria and has been charmed down by a Wigglytuff. He chooses to come in with his Magnezone instead of a Vigoroth. And in this particular situation, both ideas do have merit, because with the Magnezone he was able to farm down and get quite a bit of energy, but knowing that Vigoroth had a losing matchup versus Altaria in the lead, I believe the better play to secure a win may have been to come in with Vigoroth and attempt to counter down the Wigglytuff. You may have had to commit a shield, but you could leave with quite a bit of energy, or at the very least you can preserve your full health Magnezone to try and sweep endgame. Match number 3 is decided at the 6-minute and 50-second mark. In this particular instance, it is a Magnezone versus Skarmory matchup, and Skarmory has a ton of energy, and in this matchup, Pisistratus does decide to double Mirror Shot bait rather than go for the Wild Charge, knowing that the Skarmory is low enough that a Wild Charge would take it out, and simultaneously knowing that since the opponent has a lot of energy, they have extra incentive to shield. So in this particular instance, he is able to get both the opponent's shields on Mirror Shot baits. In match 4, I took a look at it for quite some time, and even if you were very good about catching charge moves and whatnot, I believe it's truly a rock, paper, scissors scenario where there's just no possible win condition, and that will happen from time to time, where there will just be a team that hard counters your team to the point where so long as the opponent doesn't misplay, there's no possible win condition, and it appears that this was one of those times. And in game number 5, this game is decided very early on at the 14-minute and 5-second mark. In this particular instance, the Wigglytuff has enough energy for a charge move, but actually overtaps and is farmed down by the Magnezone before throwing, and that inability to force a shield from Pisistratus allows Pisistratus to have 2 shields endgame, where from there, with 2 shields and with his opponent not having a hard punish to a Magnezone, allows the Magnezone to clean up endgame with relative ease. We're hopping into the battles with using Magnezone as a lead for the team. And in the first match, Pisistratus does pick up a really positive lead. He's leading his Magnezone into a Wigglytuff. Unfortunately, this match does actually end up being a loss, and the pivoting point, the most important moment of the match, comes at the minute and 48-second mark. At this particular point in time, the Magnezone is fully loaded on energy, has 2 wild charges, but is at a 1 shield to 2 shield deficit to Lantern. At this moment, instead of throwing the double wild charge, he does decide to bait with a Mirror Shot in the hopes of getting a shield, and the opponent actually no-shields it. And this, by baiting here and the opponent calling the bait, costs him 88 HP of damage onto that Lantern, and as a result, in the end game, the Lantern is able to Thunderbolt the Magnezone and take him out for the win. And we're now hopping into the second match, and this, while still being a positive lead, is slightly less so. It's a Magnezone into an Alolan Graveler, so it is a positive lead in all even shield scenarios, and this match is actually decided fairly early on. the opponent safe swaps into a Frostlass, and Pisistratus actually makes the decision, even though he had a favorable lead, to stay in with the Magnezone. And this is the decision that does win him the game. And the reason he stays in is because so long as he can beat the Frostlass with Magnezone, then his Vigoroth is going to be able to absolutely tear into that Alolan Graveler. So by realizing that he has 2 counters for Alolan Graveler, but only 1 for Frostlass, he was able to set his Pokemon up in the correct alignment and make sure that he won the game. As we hop into battle number 3, and he again picks up a fantastic lead, leading Magnezone into Wigglytuff, so he is going to be resisting all that charm damage, and this match is decided right around the 7-minute and 52-second mark. So after the opponent safe swaps into their Obstagoon, Pisistratus counters with his Vigoroth, and rather than throw the energy, he actually does decide to attempt to counter all the way down, but since the swap was a little slower than he was hoping, the opponent is actually able to get to 2 charge moves. Pisistratus did shield the first, but he has a decision to make. He has to call whether this is going to be a cross chop, which would be enough to take him out, or a Night Slash. And he calls that it is a Night Slash, and it is. So he's able to save the shield, counter down, save the energy, and maintain switch alignment, so that way he is able to win the game and not have a 2-0 shield deficit. Really negative lead, so the opponent is leading a Vigoroth into his Magnezone, and he instantly safe swaps into his own Vigoroth. However, interestingly enough, his opponent actually stays in, which is an indicator that their backline is weak to Vigoroth, or it just in general has losing matchups to Vigoroth. So in this situation, it is important to prioritize even going down a shield to win switch advantage, and at the 10-minute and 21-second mark, the opponent has let Pisistratus' Body Slam through and is now going for a charge move of their own, and he actually decides not to shield, which ends up costing him the match, unfortunately. As it turns out, the opponent's Vigoroth is slightly better IVs, so they are able to counter Pisistratus' Vigoroth down before he's able to get to another move, and therefore the opponent controls switch advantage. This ends up being problematic because then the opponent's Unova Stunfisk is lined up with Pisistratus' Magnezone, and the opponent's Shadow Lapras is on his Altaria, whereas had he committed a shield in the Vigoroth matchup, he could have won switch advantage and then dictated alignment, so then he would have been able to line things up in an order that was more favorable to him and win the game. And for the 5th and final game, he does pick up a positive lead in Skarmory, but the game is decided at the 13-minute and 47-second mark. And it's decided when he does decide to commit his second shield and go to a 2-0 shield deficit in order to maintain switch advantage. In this particular match, switch advantage ended up being key because without switch advantage, the opponent's Charizard would have been matched up with his Magnezone, which is a terrible matchup for Magnezone, and the opponent's Skarmory would have been matched up against his Altaria, which is again a bad matchup for Altaria. So in this situation, not being afraid to go down 2 shields ended up helping him preserve alignment and to win the game.
Yeah, the conclusion here is that Altaria lead is very expected, and you need that Vigoroth for the safe swap, so I think that the Magnezone lead is the lead to play here. Now, I preceded this set with a 5-0 and followed it up with 2-4-1, so I feel fairly confident that this order, the Magnezone, Vigoroth, Altaria, is a 4-1 team. Now we're going to be looking at some of the broader implications of this team. And so if we look over here on the left, we're going to have a graphic from the Go Stadium team and Polymer's Up, who were very instrumental in the development of this video. So if we look at the kind of archetypes of this team, there's 3 possibilities here. It's definitely not an unbalanced team. There's cores across all of them. But I would argue that even though the Vigoroth cores were 6th and 26th, it's more of a duo core and pivot team because of just how good Vigoroth is as a safe swap. Now, this might change depending on, say, Drifblim becoming more popular, but generally speaking, Vigoroth is the safe swap of the meta, and it's so good of a safe swap that even having 6th and 26th ranked cores, it generally performs more like a duo core plus pivot team. But there are possibilities to run it like a trio core. Speaking of Vigoroth being a safe swap, HomeSliceHenry has a video about that, so you should check that out. Is the safest swap in Holiday Cup. And then if you're looking for more of an unbalanced line, you could run this team like Jonkus was running with the Shadow Magnezone Altaria core and then the Altaria Magnezone core. Additionally, it's very similar to the Go Stadium core here up at the top for the Holiday Cup. We can see that Altaria Vigoroth, and then we have an electric type over there. Now, instead of Alolan Graveler and Alolan Golem, we used Magnezone, but there are definitely some similarities here, so I would check out this Go Stadium graphic as well. And links to all of this will be in the description. So yeah, this is the lowest threat score, with a threat score of 569 when I calculated it, of the Holiday Cup. I have been PvPisistratus, and if you're interested in this kind of stuff, like and subscribe to HomeSliceHenry's channel, as well as click on the link in the description that will bring you to my channel.